All right, let's dive into a really fascinating paradox, something that gets to the very core of what it means to be human, our deep, almost primal need for completely useless fun.
I mean, really think about it for a second. We live in a world that is obsessed with productivity, with purpose, with side hustles. So why on earth do we spend hours, days, even years painting miniatures, or collecting stamps, or just trying to get that one guitar chord right? Why do we do all these things that offer absolutely no immediate reward for our survival?
If you look at this through a purely biological lens, it just doesn't seem to add up. The classic efficiency-first model basically says that any behavior that isn't directly helping us find food, stay safe, or make more of us, well, it should have been weeded out by evolution a long time ago. It looks like a total waste of precious energy.
And yet, here we are. We fill our lives with these beautiful, intricate, and on the surface, totally pointless activities. This is the paradox, this gorgeous contradiction that we're going to unravel today. So where do we even begin to crack this mystery? Well, we're going to look at everything, the hard science, the animal kingdom, and even some deep philosophy, to uncover the true purpose behind all this useless fun. First up, let's start with the hard evidence from inside our own bodies. What is actually happening to our brains, to our health, when we get lost in a hobby? And this isn't just about feeling good. It's incredibly measurable. Get this. A massive study in Japan looked at 50,000 adults and found a direct, clear relationship. The more hobbies a person had, the lower their risk of developing dementia. It's that simple. And the physical benefits are just so concrete. Data from something called the Pittsburgh Enjoyable Activities Test shows that the more you engage in hobbies, the lower your levels of cortisol. That's the main stress hormone. It also correlates with lower blood pressure and even a lower BMI. So this isn't just in your head, it's about being physically, measurably healthier. So how in the world does this work? Well, hobbies literally rewire your brain. They force you to create new connections, new neural pathways. That's a process called neuroplasticity. And all this activity builds up what scientists call a cognitive reserve. Think of it like a buffer for your brain, protecting it against age-related decline. And as if that's not enough, hobbies also kick off a dopamine reward loop that just plain makes you feel good and helps you bounce back from the resources that stress burns away.
Okay, so we know hobbies are amazing for our brains, but is this drive for useless fun, for play, just a human thing? Or can we find some clues out there in the animal kingdom?
Turns out, we are not alone. Not by a long shot. Biologists have seen countless examples of what look an awful lot like animal hobbies. Ravens have been seen playing with stones, just for the heck of it. Dolphins surf waves and blow intricate bubble rings. Otters will repeatedly slide down a muddy riverbank. There's no food, no mating. It just looks like they're having fun. And this observation also reveals a much darker side. In zoos, when complex animals are denied these kinds of hobbies, what zookeepers call enrichment, they can develop a condition called zoochosis. It's this heartbreaking pathological state where they just perform repetitive compulsive behaviors like pacing back and forth. It shows us that for a complex brain, the absence of play isn't just boredom, it's a genuine form of suffering.
Okay, so this brings us to the biggest question of all. If this drive for play is so widespread and so important for well-being, why did it evolve in the first place? Why would nature ever select for a trait that, on the surface, just seems to waste time and burn calories?
Well, one of the first big ideas was the surplus energy theory. It's pretty straightforward, really. It basically says that as a species gets better and more efficient at surviving, it just has energy left over. All its primary needs are met. And so play and hobbies are just a way to blow off that extra steam.
But a more modern theory, and I think a much more compelling one, is called adaptive potentiation. This idea frames hobbies as a kind of biological insurance. Think of it this way. All that wasted time tinkering and exploring is actually filling up a mental toolbox with a bunch of random, useless skills. But then, when the environment suddenly changes, the individuals with the most diverse toolboxes, the most random skills, they're the ones who might just have a novel solution to survive.
And this completely reframes something we all hate: boredom. It's not just a feeling. It's what some scientists call a repulsive brain state. It's an evolutionary kick in the pants designed to push us out of our comfort zones. Because in the long game of survival, just sitting around doing nothing is dangerous. Boredom is nature's way of forcing us to explore, to innovate, and to engage in the very hobbies that might just save our species later on.
We've seen the biology, we've seen the evolution,
But to really get to the heart of why we need hobbies, we have to go a little deeper and ask a more philosophical question. What drives us to not just exist, but to truly live?
Indian philosophy has this really powerful lens for looking at this. It makes a distinction between two kinds of happiness. There's prayas, which is that fleeting external pleasure we get from things, a good meal, a new gadget. But then there's shreyas, which is lasting internal fulfillment. Hobbies, you could argue, are one of the main ways we pursue shreyas, by using our uniquely human ability to choose what is deeply meaningful over what is just temporarily pleasant.
And you know what? This fits perfectly with a psychological model you probably already know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once our basic survival stuff is taken care of, we start climbing that pyramid. And hobbies are absolutely crucial for these higher levels. A group hobby helps us feel like we belong, mastering a new skill builds our self-esteem, and ultimately, our hobbies are how many of us achieve self-actualization, by fulfilling our own unique creative potential.
But our modern world, it often gets this completely backward. We live in this culture of total work, where even our downtime is supposed to be optimized to make us more productive later. The ancient Greeks had a very different idea called schola. It wasn't about taking a break from work, it was a state of being, a contemplative activity you did purely for its own sake. In that sense, a true hobby is an act of rebellion. It's a way of reclaiming schola in a world that wants to monetize everything.
So when you bring all of these different threads together, the conclusion is just undeniable. It doesn't matter if you look at it from a neurological, an evolutionary, a psychological, or a philosophical angle, the message is exactly the same. Hobbies build our brains, they ensure our adaptability, they induce flow, and they assert our freedom. And the absence of these things, well, that leads to decline, stagnation, anxiety, and despair.
This quote just reframes everything perfectly. Work is a response to external necessity. A hobby is a response to internal necessity. Put simply, work is what we have to do to survive. A hobby is what we choose to do to be. It's not some frivolous little distraction. It's arguably the most essential, the most human thing we can do.
So, I'll just leave you with this one final thought to ponder. In a world that is constantly trying to turn everything into a utility or a side hustle, is fiercely protecting the unusefulness of your hobby, that one thing you do just for you, just for the pure love of doing it, is that the most profoundly human act of all?